When I first started world building, it was because I was just playing like pretend in my bed, and I was imagining that like, oh, if I get off the bed, it's like a river or something, right? And so I'm stuck on the bed, it's a boat. And then, there was like a support beam in the house, and that was a tree, or maybe there was, there's a curved stairwell, and that was a waterfall. Real basic stuff that kids do. And, now it's like I'm mapping out these worlds on rice paper and like looking up how weather patterns work on Earth-like worlds and stuff, and how does the lighting impact the color of chlorophyll in plants and stuff. I don't know, would it even be chlorophyll if it's not green? I don't know, actually. I don't know if we have... Well, no, it must be chlorophyll, because we have plants with purple leaves. Those exist. They're not as common, but I'm literally looking at one right now. So, yeah, no, it'd probably be chlorophyll, even if it wasn't literally green. This video is gonna be extremely rambly, but that's because we're talking about how to world build for ourselves. And I think when we think about world building for ourselves, the real question that comes up is not just why are we world building for ourselves, the question is why do we create anything? Like, what are we trying to do? And for me, the answer when I'm creating, or even when I'm just imagining just for myself, but also when I'm creating things for other people, the goal remains somewhat the same. When it's for other people, additional factors come into play. Yeah, this is already a mess, so I'm not gonna edit this. It's gonna be authentic. You love authentic things, right? Okay. Why do we create things? For me, it's because I want to practice my emotions. This is gonna sound so silly, but like, I think I didn't realize how deeply I felt about certain things until how much certain experiences in my childhood and stuff had impacted me, until I started recreating them in my head over and over and over again until until it felt normal, until I had felt those emotions in my body. It's kind of like, I think it's like, almost like a form of self-EMDR, which is a therapy technique for when you have like repressed or like emotions that don't exist, memories that don't exist about an event, and the event was really traumatizing. And normally what you do is, when you have like trauma in your body, is you like think about the event and you deconstruct the negative habits you got out of it and realize that you're not in that event anymore. But like, when the event was that you were taken away from your parents, your biological parents, before you could form memories, but soon enough that you could feel emotions, then it's like, you're kind of screwed. It's like, how do you... there's not like one behavior that has emerged from that. There's not one event that I can remember. There's just like this gut feeling now, whenever people are going to go away, that I gotta do everything to keep them. And that sometimes pivots all the way from I'm going to ignore them and they'll stick around, to I am going to like dedicate my entire life to them and then they'll stick around. And then, and then everywhere in between. And so it sucks. So for me, creating things is practicing these difficult emotions and then making concrete decisions about how I handle them. And sometimes it's fun to practice these difficult emotions and then be like, I'm gonna make bad decisions. Because in real life, I don't really get to make bad decisions about my emotional state without hurting people I care about. And I don't want to hurt people I care about because I care about them. That's how that works. But also, it's an opportunity to practice making good emotional decisions. That's usually the one that happens at the end of the story. So that's why I make things. But why you make things might be entirely different. You might be like there's a lot of stuff that seems like it's really aimed at escapist fantasies. Like obviously I watch a lot of anime, and a lot of popular anime are isekai about young men being taken to another world where women fawn over them, and their video game knowledge makes them extremely powerful. And that speaks to a very specific fantasy for a very specific kind of person with very specific psychological needs that apparently is popular to fund the entire animation industry or something. why we create is personal, but it's also societal. Because why is it that, like, when you make things in certain ways, it's because the reason that you feel that these certain things are going to gain certain results, the reason, like, okay, backing up a step, why do we think pink is feminine? Because once upon a time it wasn't. Pink was a masculine color. But now if you want to be a super girly girl, you dress in pink, right? Or if you want to be, if you want to give off feminine vibes and you're a dude, you dress in pink, right? Like it's, you dress in pink with lots of laces and frills. And like, but in, you know, in the French court, laces and frills were manly men stuff. Heels was manly men stuff because heels were for riding horses, right? But now heels is a feminine thing. So pink being for women is a cultural thing, right? Like at that, but in my heart of hearts, I still look at pink frilly things and think that's a girly girl thing. Like I feel that right here. Like it's so instinctive now. Is this true for all of my desires? Is the reason that I want to be a, you know, like an artist is because I like how society treats artists? Do I feel like I want to create stuff because I like the way that society thinks, oh, art is so cool and stuff. At the same time, artists are not necessarily treated well, actually, by society. Artists, I mean, like, we've got the whole AI art thing, and now they're like, yeah, everyone can be an artist. And, like, I want to set aside the whole AI art is built on plagiarism thing for a second here. Look at it, because that's obviously bad. Plagiarism's bad. Taking people's copyrighted material is like not ideal. Now I don't really agree with the copyright law in general, but I do think that's taking people's stuff while they're alive and they want to do stuff with it is like, you know, that's a little cringe. Like you should definitely let art be for the artist for a while, like for the artist and their like community and stuff. So let's take that out of AI art and let's just look at AI art from a like, it's a tool that generates art, right? But even then, why do, if I'm looking at AI art, now that's more about me. I'm looking in a mirror because it's not a human communicating to me. Like when a human makes art, they're communicating something. And I'm receiving, on the other end of that, receiving that communication. But when a computer randomly generates something, I am finding meaning in noise. I might as well be looking at like stars or something. And this isn't to say that looking at stars is like a bad experience, but stars are not humans trying to communicate with me, right? Stars are just really pretty stars, you know? And, you know, to be fair, I'm also not very religious, so maybe you have like religious and spiritual stuff that you feel around stars, and I'm not going to step on that. But for me, stars, not communications from other people. So, or you can take whatever thing that is not, insert whatever non-spiritual belief you have here that's like random stuff, you can see where I'm coming from, right? Like, so on a societal level, is the reason that I make art so that I can get that recognition, that fame? Do I just make art so that I can be like the Sabrina Carpenter of video games? I'm never going to be the Sabrina Carpenter of video games. And then, of course, there's the commercial level. Now, this has a lot to do with economy and stuff. Maybe we make art for ourselves, quote unquote, but maybe it's also because we want to make money off of it. Like, is the reason I want to be a super famous artist because I'll have money and then I can use that money to make more art? Like, I do admittedly want my latest project here, Isaiah, my fantasy world about magic, geopolitics, and bunny-eared demons. I want that to be super successful. But that's because I live in a society that I don't have. I live like from a financial, commercial, economic level. I live in a society where I need money to eat. And if I had like $1 million bajillion dollars, then I could just invest it and live off the dividends. And then I could make as much art as I want and it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't need to cater it to the market at all. At the same time, and I talked about this a little bit in my finishing up my writing video, although hilariously, I might have cut it also because I went on really long rambles in that, in that it's kind of good that commerce encourages some pro-social behaviors in some way. For example, Nazis. Nazis are bad, right? But Nazis also not very commercially viable, right? Unless we're punching Nazis, that's commercially viable. So if you make something that's pro-Nazi, you're not gonna see a lot of money usually. I really hope and pray. So, but that's like on the really extreme end. What commercial influences are making me feel like I should make certain types of art? Like the whole reason I'm turning Issei into a game and I'm not just releasing it as a free web series is because I do want the opportunity to make money off of it. You can't. Where is the money in web novels? Do you know anyone who reads web novels? I don't read web novels. I know that people read fanfic, but that's not really the same. That's not monetized. So, am I doing this at a commercial level just for the money? How, to what extent? And the thing is obviously for everyone it's going to be different. For me, it is kind of I want to make something that I love in the hopes that other people love it, in the hopes that I can make $1 million bajillion and then I can continue to make the things that I love, full time. I would love this to be my entire life, right? Is that I just make things that I love for people who love them, and then I make $1 million off of it, right? But that's everybody's. I mean, I don't know. I assume that's everybody's dream. I assume that not everybody wants to go in and be an accountant every day. But I don't know, maybe you are an accountant or whatever and you find that super fulfilling. Sorry, accountants, for that being the go-to boring job. I'm sure accounting, if you like accounting and you do accounting, that honestly, and you find it fulfilling, I actually want to hear from you in the comments, what do you do and why does it give you joy? I'd love to hear that. But anyway, now the next question, of course, is why do I make things on a spiritual level? Now, for me, I'm not a very religious person. I'll get super vulnerable here. What I believe, on a spiritual level, is that the most important thing that we can do, morally, is to try to make the world better for the next generation of humanity. As one person, though, it is also not my responsibility, I believe, to fix the entire world, because I do not have the power to fix the entire world, so it's not my responsibility to fix the entire world, right? Do not worry about things you can't control. That just stresses you out, right? So instead, I worry about the things instead you worry about the things you can control, and maybe you try to increase your locus of control. You try to increase the things you can control in order to have a bigger impact. But it's not power should not be for power's sake, right? Power should not be for oneself. Power should be for humans. And with this in mind, one of the reasons I make the art that I do, and that I do feel morally, from a moral perspective, it is my responsibility to try to send pro-social messages, is because I think that will make the world a better place. And I don't think that all art needs to all be pro-social stuff or stuff focused on social issues or whatever. I think there's actually plenty of room for art that's more difficult and more challenging. I played through all of Lisa for work, and I did a bunch of the QA for that. And Lisa the Painful is a story about a world in which all women are vanished, and there's only one left. There's one baby girl left, and you found her, and then everyone else is men. And it's kind of about how men are terrible, but it's a really difficult piece, and it's got a lot of really dark humor in it, and there's a lot of I don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube. Bad stuff that happens to women, happens in it, and bad stuff that happens to other people happens in it too. It's not an easy game to play purely from a content perspective. But I don't think that means it shouldn't exist. It's just if you go into it, I also think it does a good job of being about trying to break away from abuse and trying to break away from substance addiction and all that. I think it does a good job of exploring how difficult these ideals are and how challenging emotionally they actually are, rather than just being don't hurt women, don't do drugs. It's how do you break these cycles of violence when it's all you've known? That must be much harder. But at the same time, I can't really recommend it to everyone because of how difficult the content is, right? Even if I think it would vastly improve society for people to experience that. It's also, though, the case that I don't think everyone can experience that and get the thing that they need to out of it. I think some people would experience Lisa and go, haha, funny game where you set the orphans on fire. I think some people experience Lisa and go, I really liked it when they beat up the women in it, right? Like, it's, because... And that's the thing about, like, media literacy and stuff, is that it's, in order for you to really maximize what you're getting out of a piece of work, you have to have a society that can, like, achieve that work. And, or, like, your target audience has to be open to receiving that. Like, you couldn't give Lisa to, like, a 6-year-old, right? Because it would be scary, and I don't think they'd understand it even, and I don't think they'd get it. I think they would walk away with, like, I don't even know. I don't think as a 6-year-old I would get Lisa. I would be so confused. I'd be like, why is the protagonist so mean? Why did the protagonist hit his daughter? It's like, it's hard. So I guess what I'm saying is that while I know that I can't necessarily I can't guarantee the reaction of an audience of any one of my given works, it is nonetheless important to me that I strive to make works that impact people in positive ways, rather than in ways that just make them sad or exploit their emotions or whatever for money. I don't want to just make people cry for money. I want people to cry and then realize it's okay, and then move on for money. I want to make people overcome their trauma for money. But, this brings us all the way back to the individual level. Like, why am I making art? Is because I want to feel emotions. I want to practice my emotions, and I want to help other people practice their emotions. I want other people to, like... But, like, when I express something with my art, it's because I want someone to understand me. And I don't know, maybe that's an incredibly selfish sort of reason to make art. Maybe it's, maybe, I mean, it's very possible that I'm a fundamentally selfish person, and that you can sense that, and that you can just, like, tell that I'm, a narcissist or whatever, and I really just want people to fawn over me and think that I'm so cool, and, be like, oh my gosh, look at all these complicated emotions that Amaiguri feels. She's gone through so much. What a poor baby girl. Like, I don't know. Maybe I do want people to do that. I don't know. Do I actually want that? From, like, the world? And even if I got that, here's the thing, is that even if I manage to impact a bunch of people, it doesn't mean they'll actually know or understand me. Like, no matter, because my art isn't me. They'll know and understand my art, even though that's what I'm trying to use my art to do. So remember in the earlier, like, talks when I was talking about how, like, you should be really honest about what you want out of your work? I don't know what I actually want out of my work sometimes. I think it's, like, the emotional catharsis of it. But, oh, hang on, I've got more slides. At the end of the day, though, I think my point is that unless you are literally not sharing your work with anybody, I think if your work is leaving your mind and it is entering the physical world, and even if it's only for your eyes, you're still communicating with a future version of yourself, right? And a future version of yourself is still a different person from you. And so, at the end of the day, there are always the impositions of outside forces on your work, even if that's just time, the force of time making you see your work in the future, when you will inevitably see it unless you're a time traveler, or if the moment you sell it, you have got money and the forces in the market and stuff to consider, or the moment you share it to other people, it's, like, not entirely just your work anymore because outside forces are looking at it. But I don't think that that's bad, because I think at the end of the day, creativity is fundamentally about compromise, isn't it? It's about the fact that you can't perfectly create the thing in your head in the real world. You just create, like, the closest possible thing to it. And I think that's okay, because the quote-unquote sacrifices made, getting it from our brains to reality, that kind of problem solving is, like, the driver of innovation, right? Like, the difference between what we want in our heads and what we want in the real world is where you get innovation for the future. The first humans that went, I want more food, I want more food from in my head to what if I set this food on fire to increase the number of calories I get out of it, like, is like, you know, that was the driver to invent cooking. I speculate, I don't know, I haven't researched that much. So outside forces will always impact your work. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're, like, if you think you're making a meme for yourself because you think it's funny, or if you're making a meme because it will get you social media clout, or that you're making a meme because you think it's funny because you've seen other memes like it get social media clout, and there's like those layers there. Like, at the end of the day, there's always going to be the imposition of outside forces on your work, and I think that's okay. So my question at the end of the day here is, why do you want to build worlds? Lastly, I want to leave you with this idea. If it doesn't exist, it will never be good. And in order to become good, it must exist. But no art is morally obligated to be good. There's no moral failing in your art being bad. As such, it's fine to just make stuff for yourself that may or may not ever be good by anyone's standards. It can just exist. It can just be an expression that you've made, and it can be for you or your future self, because the innovation that it will have taken to get it from your brain to the real world is worth it. So go make stuff.